Stephan Gebedi of Thanatos. Welcome to 69 Face of Rock. How are you doing today?
Fine, man. Just lazy Sunday afternoon, so everything is okay over here.
Very good. You're about to release a brand new compilation album titled 4 Decades of Death. What can you tell me about it?
It's not like a best of or anything like that. The sound good because I hear it twice, but anyway, for you, it's okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. It's a compilation of unreleased material, like stuff that we re-recorded, demo tapes for the later albums. So things that have never been made public and they're now coming out on this compilation album. And the main thing for us was the bonus DVD, which features our very last concert at Rotterdam Festival 2 years ago. And it was filmed with multi-cams, I think with 10 or 12 cameras, and it looks pretty well. So we really want to get that across to the people, with a physical release. So that's the thing. It's a CD with unreleased material, some songs that people haven't heard, other versions, and then the DVD.
In your opinion, what are some of the rarities that people should definitely pay attention to?
Well, the thing that was released as a single already, Putrid Existence, the song, it's a weird one because it's a song we played in the rehearsal rooms in 1988. It was a instrumental song back then. It was never released, and a couple of years ago, I decided to re-record it, add vocals and lyrics to it. So that's one of the things that has never been on any album or demo before. But it's a very new one. There's also stuff on that from demo stuff that was never actually released on an album. A song called Euthanasia, and that's for most people it will be a brand new song as well. There's more stuff like that, like demos for the last couple of albums, other versions from the people or from what was known to the main public.
I think the DVD is going to be a real big attraction of this set, especially when the band hasn't really been seen in certain parts of the world.
That is true, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. It's the problem is we weren't invited or we didn't get good offers, to come up to the US. Yeah. Originally, there was a plan to play Maryland Death Fest in 2024, 2025, or maybe even sooner. But then COVID, struck, and all the lineups were like they were rescheduled for the upcoming years. And yeah, then around 2021, 2022, it was clear to me that the band had come to an end, and it was a good decision to make it stop. So the plans that were there to make it on another a later opportunity to play Maryland Death Fest, they were put aside. But it was something that was in the pipeline.
So at this point, what is the status of the band?
It's well, actually we split up, but we don't tour anymore. We don't do new albums, but you never know what can happen with something like a 7-inch single or just a few separate tracks that could be recorded. We didn't split up with a fight. It was just something like it's been a long time, and it's a good moment to quit after the last studio album, which we thought was a pretty good one. And it was also done with Paul, with me in the band, and also on Asphyx and Hail of Bullets. He needed more time for Asphyx, and I didn't want to look out for another guitarist. He was with the band for like 22 years. And to go on and look for another guitarist again and have lineup changes again, it wasn't something that I was looking forward to. It was just, we have had so many lineup changes over the years, so I was really happy to have one guy in the band that had been there for more than 20 years. So it was no option for me to go on with another guitar player anymore.
That makes sense. Although I still have a feeling this is not the end.
You never know, but it seems like the end to me, It's like 40 years now with this release. It's like the posthumous release, some sort of way. And we celebrate for 40 years of Thanatos. And it's been great, It's been a good ride, but I must admit the metal scene has changed a little bit. It's difficult from when we stepped in, when we were like, teenagers. And there was a scene that's different from the scene nowadays. You have to watch your steps. Everything has to be politically correct. Everything has to be, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. I don't know. I'm still feel so much at home as I used to do.
I think I see your point here quite clearly.
Yeah.
Probably for as long as you have. So let's talk history. Yeah. Thanatos originally formed.
When? How? Well, we formed in 1983, 1984. It was like two guys from high school, me and a guy called Remco, and we had the same musical taste. We saw each other at the schoolyard, and I think one day he came up and he was wearing a wristband with like 3 or 4 rows of studs. And next week, I had more studs on my arm. Then next week, he again. So finally, we got in touch and started talking about music instead of just showing up with patches of bands that nobody had heard of back then. And then it turned out he was playing a little bit of guitar, and me too. So we decided we wanted to make the fastest and the heaviest band around in Holland at the time. So all we had was like regular heavy metal bands, a little bit of a speed metal band here and there. But we wanted to go more brutal and faster. We didn't play our instruments that well, but we started jamming. Found a drummer, also from a brother from a guy at school, and well, we started jamming at his attic room, and that's where it started. We made a demo tape in 1984 with shitty instruments. I think we had something like, the word wasn't invented back then. We did something like a karaoke amp, sound mixer, Philips sound mixer. It was my guitar amp, and we didn't have a bass player. We just started making some noise, and the other guy who had classical guitar lessons. So we had some classical interludes between the metal songs, and that made it a little bit more different and intricate for some people. And we shopped that demo tape around. We landed at, I think, Metal Forces magazine in the UK. They voted it 6th demo tape of the year.
Why the name Thanatos? Where did that come from?
The name Thanatos. Well, back then we wanted something that had to do with death and, death destruction without using the English word death. And we were at we had Latin at school in Greek. So we thought, well, if we take something from Greek or Latin mythology, and which means death or god of death, in the case of Thanatos, it's really cool, and people have to think about it. It's not as obvious as calling a band death or, I don't know, massacre or anything. And besides that, those names were already taken when we started thinking about it. We didn't know back then, but it was obvious. And so Thanatos means death or god of death, death as a persona in the Greek mythology. And we thought it sounded cool and it would fit music.
You were talking about your demos when I kind of interrupted you, and I did that for a reason. I want to talk about that part of the history. You were a demo band for a long, long time before you got signed. So tell me about that period.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think we were like, in the beginning, we weren't really good musicians, and we had a lot of lineup changes back then. So every time we were maybe up for making the next step, something happened, like a drummer left or something like this happened. We were like, every time we was thrown back a little bit, and so in the end, we made 4 demo tapes before we eventually got signed. And bands that started later in the Netherlands, they already had signed, record deals with labels like Roadrunner or other labels. And we were just waiting for a big one to come by, and it didn't happen. So in the end, I think around 88, 89, we signed to Shark Records from Germany, which turned out to be a shitty label. But anyway, we had an album out finally. But it should have happened, like 3 or 4 years earlier, I guess. Then we would have been ahead of the game instead of chasing other bands.
Yeah. So emerging from Netherworlds, right? That finally comes out in 1990. How did that album do for you?
Reasonably, it wasn't the biggest label we were on, and they were having troubles with some with the press and in Germany. It was a German label, but apparently the guy didn't pay for advertisements in the magazines, so they didn't do much promotion. They couldn't do much promotion, so not many interviews. They did pretty well, I think. Yeah, you never know how many copies it sold, but it sold pretty well, and we did play a lot of shows in those years. But we never made a big break, We were supposed to do like, I think it was just before the first or the second album, we were supposed to go on tour with Cannibal Corpse. It would be a tour like 35 dates. Cannibal Corpse headlining, obviously. We were the direct support of one band before it. And 4 or 5 weeks before the tour, it was canceled because they had to go back to the studio to record another album. Same thing happened with the Next Order tour, which was also canceled like a month before. So we had some bad luck, in those days, which held us back.
You're definitely right about interviews and not getting enough press. I mean, trying to find information on your band while living in the United States was next to impossible.
Yeah, really? I think there was a Canadian or US label distributing the records in the US. It was Cargo Records back then. I don't I have no idea if they did a good job or not because we did some underground. We got some underground press, you know, obviously with the underground magazine, but we never made it to the big magazine. Yeah, maybe Metal Maniacs. I think we were featured in Metal Maniacs with the second album or so.
I think that's the only little blurb I recall seeing with
Yeah.
and I still probably have that. So the second album, which came out 2 years later, right? Realm of Ecstasy. What can you say about that record?
We liked the one much better. It had a better production. It was more the sound we were looking for. I think with the first album, we were still, yeah, it was like we wanted to go for a more brutal sound, but we didn't have the means. The producer didn't understand what we were trying to get across. But the second album that succeeded much better. The only thing with that album was, I think that my voice was constantly low in the lower regions. Normally, I have some sort of variety in my voice from going to screaming, from to grunting, and that album was just low grunting, which was a little bit, yeah, something I didn't like in the end. But overall, I really liked that album, and we did pretty well after that album with bigger shows in Europe. But eventually, the band broke up like 1 year after that album
It was very
because some people, sorry.
which was very surprising because it seemed like things were going well. So what happened?
Yeah. Well, behind the scenes, things weren't going that well. We had some guys in the band who were more into partying, getting drunk, doing drugs, you know, than trying to be seriously about being a musician. So we had a lot of problems, people fucking up concerts, you know, shit. A lot of things went wrong, and in the end, we said, well, like we've got 2 albums out now. If we can't act like a proper band, then maybe they'll split up. And also, there was some musical differences. I think some of the guys in the band want to go in a more technical direction, like Watchtower or Confessor. I want to go more in that direction without brutal vocals. So yeah, it was like I'm not going to go along with that. So it was either this or that, and then we split up for a while, a long while.
So what did you end up doing for the next 8 years?
Yeah, well, I did play in some local bands as a guitarist or a vocalist, but nothing special. I was a little bit tired of the whole music industry at the moment because things hadn't gone as well as I was hoping for. So in the end, I think, after a year of 5 years after Thanatos split up, I was in a band again, and it was going more and more into the direction of Thanatos. I was starting to write songs. It was going that same direction. So I thought, yeah, well, why not give it another try and try to start it up with people who are really into that kind of music this time. So that's why I got in touch with Paul, who was still younger than him, 2 guys that were Howitzer and Sinister. And that's when we did the third album.
Yeah. So in what 2000, you come back
Yeah.
big encounters, right? Do you think people were more receptive towards your music at that point?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was the worst album we ever made. It's the shittiest album we ever made. I don't like the drumming on it. I don't like the production, but it did pretty well. We were on Hammerheart Records, which was a Dutch label. They weren't really big, but they did. I think they did a good job. The album sold reasonably well, and we got back on the scene. That was the most important thing. And from that moment on, I think we found our way a little bit with the style. And I think each album after that became a little better again. So we
That's
got a new lineup again after that album, and that lasted for like 17 years. Yeah, I think in 2002 we got a steady lineup, and those guys stayed with me until 2018 or something. That same lineup, and then it was a good tip period. You know, we did a lot of shows at that time. We became bigger again a little bit. So yeah, that's
so by what 2004, you did Undead Unholy Divine, right?
yeah.
Uh, solidified your return. Were you much happier with that record?
Yeah, I think at the time it was a really good record. I think it was the music we were, yeah, kind of music we wanted to make, and we had the abilities as a band to get it across. You know, we had a good drummer then, we had a good guitarist in the band. Everybody knew what they were doing, I think that was an album that was a pretty good album for that time. I think if you listen to it now, the production might be not the greatest, but it's a good album. I'm still satisfied with the way that it's turned out.
Which brings 2009, Justify Genocide comes up. What phase of the band is that album showing?
Just for Genocide was like one of the most difficult albums to make, not to record or anything. But we were in the studio recording that one, and then our label, which we were on at the moment, the same was on that How You Define, was a Greek label called Black Lotus. They went bankrupt at the moment we were recording the next album in the studio. So they didn't pay for the recordings. The studio held the recordings on the shelf. So we had to look for another label, and it lasted quite a long time. You know, we were looking for labels, and only really small labels were interested. And well, we were really getting to the point we were saying, do we have to go on with the band or do something else? And around that time, 2006, 2007, I came up with the idea to start another band, and that became Hail of Bullets, with Paul as well, and the singer, obviously, from Pestilence and Asterix, Martin, and the drummer from Gorefest. And we thought it would be a good, would be a band that would be making steps, you know. And we recorded a 4-track EP. It was picked up by Metal Blade Records, and from that moment on, Hail of Bullets became a pretty big thing. So Thanatos was a little bit on the side of that moment. And after 2 years, we started shopping the album around a little bit again. We found a small label that was willing to put it out. It wasn't the big release we were hoping for, but at least the album came out 3 years after recording it. So I think this is the first time we worked together with Don Swano, and production-wise, it was up till then the best thing we had done. It was a real brutal sounding album and real in your face. So.
And the album you're referring to is Global Purification, correct?
No. It was still Justify Genocide. That one was held back for 3 years, and finally we recorded in 2006 and came out in 2009.
That makes sense.
And and so in that time, Hail of Bullets became bigger. We were more. We had to put invest more time in Hail of Bullets. We made 3 albums eventually for Metal Blade, and then the album you were referring to, Global Purification, came in 2014.
Yeah, that's a little bit
and
later.
It finally came out on a proper label.
Even before that, I felt that, you know, when Justify Genocide, I felt it was like a perfect time to launch the band on the American market. What do you think?
I guess so.
And
But I think there was no backing from the record company. It was a really tiny label. The album came out on a small Dutch label. They had no funds, they had nothing. So, and no, we weren't approached like by a big booking agency or anything. So it was just. And I think it was our own thing as well. We were too involved with Hail of Bullets at the time, and it was absorbing most of our time. And we were playing a lot of shows with Hail of Bullets, obviously, and it was pretty big at the moment. So yeah, Thanatos was a little bit put on the side in those years.
So how often did you get to tour Europe, and what countries were involved in those tours?
I think we did mainly small tours, not like major 4 or 6 weeks tours, but small things like 1 or 2 weeks, weekend shows. I think we played a lot of places in Europe, from Scandinavia, Spain, Italy, Germany, of course, UK. I think we played like not every country, but we played a lot of countries in Europe. So Eastern European countries as well, Poland, Hungary, Romania.
So
yeah,
let's get to Global Purification. That came out in 2014. What do you remember from that record, and what's the meaning of that title?
Well, Global we like to play with words a little bit. So Justify Genocide genocide was like justified from the point of view of some big, really bad dictators. So they justified the genocide. Global Purification was like, fuck the world, you know, everything should be killed off. Not like one particular kind of people, but everything was so, you know, the news, everything that goes around, and the whole situation in the world was like just purify it and get rid of everybody and everything. It was a little bit like, not a real message, of course, but it was the idea behind the title. And the album, well, it was a funny, it came Yeah, the way it came out was pretty funny. Actually, I was planning to get a vinyl re-release for Undead and Holy Divine because that was the only album that had never came out on vinyl. So I got in touch with this guy from Germany called Philip Schulte, and he had a tiny label, I was told. And then apparently he also worked for Century Media. So he said, well, I'm willing, I really want to put out your whole back catalog. I said, yeah, okay, on Century Media. I said, what? Wait a minute. You also work for Century Media? I said, yeah. Oh, that's cool. No problem with that. But we're actually working on a new album as well. He said, well, we can talk about that as well. So that turned out to be Global Purification. So that was like the first album that came out on one of the bigger labels, Century Media, and it did pretty well as well as the back catalog, which was selling pretty well as well. So yeah, we did a good job with that one. And I think Global Purification still is one of the best albums we've ever done.
Absolutely.
I really like that one along with Realm of Ecstasy and the very last one.
Speaking of the very last one, which is Violent Death Rituals, that came out, what, 2020, right?
Yeah.
The record, and how would you compare it to anything else that you've done in the past?
I think it's a logical step from Global Purification. It's like, I think what we did on Global Purification was really into what we wanted to do. So I think Violent Death Ritual is like a slightly better version of that record. I think the songs are more like they fit together better than on that album. It's more like a unit. So I think that album, the production is a little bit better. The song structures are a little bit better, but it's basically not that much different from what we were doing on Global Purification. It's just a little step forward, but in the same direction, which was, I think, what we wanted to do and what we wanted to sound like.
Makes sense.
So, yeah.
It seems like you take like 4 to 5 years before each release since reforming the right?
Yeah, it has different reasons, you know. It's this sometimes it's just because we have like a lineup change or something, like in between Violent Death Rituals and Global Purification, a long time drummer left us. And then we got like, should we continue or not? And we were still doing Halo Bullets at the time because it was, I must say that between 2007 and 2016, Halo Bullets absorbed most of our time. It was like we were like constantly playing shows, festivals, like all day, all year long. So Thanatos was a little bit difficult to, you know, we were still focusing that as well, but it was more difficult. And with last time, it was like 5 years because we had to look out for another record company again. We had to look out for another drummer, start writing. And like I said, Paul was also in Asphyx and Halo Bullets and Thanatos, so it was mainly up to me to come up with the songs for Thanatos this time. And that has been the case like with most albums. But this time it was like there was there was less time left to write songs, so we had to take a time. So it always takes a couple of years for us.
Sounds solid. It takes. When you look back on the last 40 years, what mark do you think Thanatos had left on the scene?
Well, I hope that we left something like a band that has pretty much been faithful to their sound throughout all the years, and that we were like, in Europe, we were like one of the first bands that started playing death thrash metal. And we try to maintain our own style, and I hope we have a lot of people think, I hope people appreciate that we never change style, that we try to kind of have our own face, our own identity. That's what we try to leave. We're not like we didn't invent anything. We didn't invent death metal, thrash metal, or anything. But we try to be unique within that little niche, and that's what we've been trying to do. And I hope that's something people remember. We never made a shitty rock album or a jazz album or whatever. You know, we never did something that's straight too far from what we were started out as.
Personally, what did you get out of it?
Well, if you mean financially, not that much. I think it's still it was like more like a big hobby. You know, with the other band, we made more money. But with Thanatos, it was not a band that cost us a lot of money either. You know, we always got our records funded by the record company. We didn't get much royalties after that, but we did manage to play shows for pretty good money. Not that much, but okay, you know. we landed endorsement deals with guitar companies, so we got guitars for free, stuff like that. So yeah, we did pretty well, I guess. We're not like it was a little bit more than a hobby, but we never became the big professional band with a lot of success. And I'm fine with that. We all had daytime jobs, and there was no pressure to change our musical style or to come up with an album every year or so. No, I'm okay with what happened. Of course, it would have been better if we had done the tours and if we had had seized our opportunities and didn't fuck up as much as we did ourselves or people around us. But yeah, shit happens. We have to deal with it.
Oh.
So I'm fine with the fact that we survived all those 38 years, and even now, 2 years after the demise, we still putting out music and still getting attention. That's cool.
I had spoken to a lot of bands over the years, and many happen to be in the same position you were in.
Yeah. Well, it's not the kind of music you make a lot of money from, of course. So it's not like it's only there for a few lucky ones who can live off death metal. But for most of us, it's just like something you do next to your side of your daytime job.
Are there still any musical goals that you'd like to accomplish?
At the moment, no. No. It sounds really pretty weird, but I think we said everything we wanted to say with the band, And it's old school death metal, It's not like you're going to come up with something totally inventive or new that nobody has heard before. So the only thing you could do is try to make songs that are memorable and try to make the best songs you're able to. But we're not going to make anything new that's going to change the world or change the face of metal. So no, I think we did what we wanted to do. And if I come up with great ideas, like maybe next year, who knows, maybe we start recording again. I'm not saying that can never happen again, but I don't see us going back on stage for like actual touring or recording full albums. But yeah, I learned before you can never say never. So
that's right.
Who knows?
Do you have any musical plans at this point?
Well, we're busy now with the re-releases. The Halo Bullets EP coming out on Agonia as well. The Thanatos thing is coming out. It's been a lot of work, to be honest. For just an album consisting of old material and a DVD. I've been very much involved with everything from artwork to giving my okay for everything they did on the record. So it's been a really busy 6 months, even busier than with regular releases. So after this, I'm just want to see what happens, with the releases. And if it really becomes some sort of a success, we can also always think about, well, maybe there's people, obviously there's people now and promoters approaching us for, do you want to do one more show here, or do you want to play a couple of shows here or there? And at the moment, there's no real, I don't think we're going to do it. But if the offers get better, and, you never know if you can stop saying no, if you can keep saying no. But I think, I'm getting older as well, so it's not like.
Finally, tell me something personal about you. Like, who is Stephan Gebedi when he's not playing music, playing tours, playing shows, or recording music? What do you like to do?
Well, well, family guy is a big word, but I do live together, more or less together with my girlfriend and her daughter. And I have a regular job, but I'm also still very much of a music fan. I go to shows regularly. I like watching horror movies. I like traveling. Well, I think I'm a pretty basic metal guy, the combination horror, metal, music, still going to shows. Yeah, it's not really special, but I think at my age, being 57 now, and I'm still going to shows on a regular basis and festivals every now and then, going out with my friends for a drink, it's not very, I don't do any weird things, I don't sacrifice little children in here, only in the weekends, but that's the only thing, obviously.
I could relate to that. I mean, I just finally got to see Sodom for the first time in my life at age 55.
Did you like it?
I loved it. They never played Chicago before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to see a band from your area again. Hopefully they play Holland next year. Macabre. Macabre is, I think, one of my favorite bands from the US. I've seen them many times, but they haven't been around to Europe for quite a while now, especially Holland. So they're playing the Stonehenge Festival next year, and we definitely want to see them. I think they're also a band that has never made it really big, but they always had a following and always have kept their integrity. They always stayed macabre, you know, and they did what they do best, and that's cool, you know. I like those kind of bands.
They're a great band, and they're really good friends of mine as well.
Are
Fantastic,
they?
fantastic guys.
I'll say hello to them, you know.
I certainly will.
It'll be fun to see them next year again.
Thank you so much for speaking with me, and good
Thank
luck
you.
with the new compilation, and
Yeah,
hopefully never say never.
exactly. Hey, thank you very much. Have a good time. Cheers.